Good morning, everyone. I'm Mitch Mitchell, Chair of the San Diego Housing Commission Board of Commissioners. It is time of 9:05 a.m. on May 12th, 2023, and I'm going to call the meeting to order, today's regular meeting and special meeting of the board. We are meeting in person this morning with commissioners, staff, and members of the public in attendance. We have a quorum with 4 commissioners present. Video of today's meeting is also being streamed live online. The link to watch today's meeting is at www.sdhc.org. Members of the public who wish to provide comments to the board will need to complete a speaker slip here in the boardroom and submit it to our Vice President of Communications, Scott Marshall, who is standing over here on the side of the boardroom. In a moment, I will be proposing the agenda items 100 and 101 be placed on the consent agenda for today's meeting. Members of the public may provide comments about the items on the consent agenda by submitting a speaker slip or a speaker request form for the item before the board considers the consent agenda. To speak in favor of any item on today's agenda, please submit a gold-colored form. I think I have one already. Yes. To speak in opposition to any agenda item, please submit a pink-colored form. Those who wish to address the board about a topic that is not on the agenda should fill out a white speaker request form. Members of the public will have 3 minutes each to provide their comments about agenda items or non-agenda public comments. However, if a large number of people wish to provide non-agenda public comments or speak on a single agenda item, comments will be limited to 1 minute each. Collective testimony by those who support or oppose an item shall be limited to no more than 15 minutes total per side. When I call your name, please step to the podium, state your name for the record, and begin making your comments. Okay, now it is the time for our non-agenda public comments for both our regular meeting and our special meeting agendas. If any speaker, so Scott, I believe we have the 4 right here. Okay. So thus far, I have 4 public comment speaker slips, and I will go ahead and start now with those in the order I've received them. Alisire Ohanian. Owanya. Good morning. Please come to the mic. Followed by Joy Sunyata. Hi, Joy. Okay.
I assumed that our comments would come after, like, the meeting, hearing the content of the meeting. But yes, my name is Alisire Lania, and I'm a resident of the Beacon, also a leasing agent through Con-Am and Wakeland Leasing Agency. And I'm ever so grateful and appreciative to the board for San Diego Housing Commission. I do receive rental assistance under the program, and it's also helped me. It's helped save my life, and it kept me a San Diego resident, which I'm so very grateful each day to have this assistance. It's really, it for residents, it enriches our hearts and our minds and brains and allows us to be productive citizens way more so. I would just say, I guess I would like to say that I believe that the funding is necessary, and future grants would be beneficial to the chaos almost, and that's happening in the city with the homelessness problems and people on the road and things that's eyesores basically. I think definitely please use social services or something, departments or human resources departments more so to understand the nature of the residents' eligibility and ongoing subsistence, because some people honestly don't deserve it, and if they're looked at specifically, would be able to see that a different program would be better for them, so that someone can make use of it that will follow through and go according to all the protocols, basically. Yeah.
Okay. So more tutorial or help, more aid for people to understand what's available.
No, more so some kind of human services or like social services, departments working together with the commission to continue eligibility in accordance with protocols that all of the residents are following, because some people are not only taking it for granted but don't deserve it.
Okay.
It's hard to, I mean, for
Yes.
all of us, it's hard to use that word deserve, like
Sure.
Really
yeah, they may be ineligible, but they're still getting the support.
Exactly.
Okay.
And, yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. All right, next up is Joy Samana. Sunyata, thank you. Good morning.
Okay, are we on? Good. Joy Sunyata, District 3. Good to be back. I used to practically live here at these meetings. See, it's good. I'm glad I got a laugh. We all need a laugh,
laughed
don't we,
immediately, which
these
means that must be
days?
true.
Yeah, all right.
Yes.
So, thank you for your work. It's so important. And so here are some of my comments for today. I'm looking forward to the update on your action plan. That's going to be very important for housing. And that's coming forward soon. And I really appreciate the data dashboard. I really haven't had a chance to work with it yet, but I was reading about it, and the city's excited about it, and so am I. And let's see, and that's tracking homelessness. So thank you for the grants. If you listen to me at City Council, I really rail on and on about grant money. So I was reading in some of the city backup that you're doing a lot with grants. So thank you for that. And of course, I'm sure you've written it in your full budget. So love grants. Don't leave any of that money on the table, please. And let's see. Thank you for the work you are doing to renovate and preserve our housing stock, your housing stock. And that is such a critical item for us. About 4 years ago at this meeting, I introduced my 3 Ps, which are preservation, prevention, and powering. Thank you, Wendy DeWitt, I don't think she's here this morning, for your needed an informative report on the preservation plan. It was last March at the Land Use and Housing Committee. So I really appreciated that so much. A quick heads up, due to my work participation in the budget hearings that just finished, I was really involved. I didn't have time to prepare for the agenda today, so I'm only going to be speaking on Mercy's item, but I will be looking forward to the presentations of everyone today, and thank you for the work, and they all look excellent. I probably would vote yes on all of them. So let's see, I look forward to okay, thank you for listening, and love to all. I threw this together last night, so hope it made sense, and love all of you so much, and love everybody. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Joy. We appreciate your appreciation.
I love that. I love to get it back.
Okay. Next up, Aaron Womuth, and then followed by Matthew Casa.
Good morning, board members. My name is Aaron Wamuth. I am a housing specialist since April 2021. When people ask me about my job, I always say I work for the best housing authority in the country. San Diego Housing Commission follows the slogan, "We're about the people," year after year for our clients. We utilize over 112% of our emergency housing vouchers, while other housing authorities struggled to meet half that percentage. It was a true honor to be part of that team, and later recognized by Jeff Davis for the 2022 Team of Excellence Award. With the Landlord Engagement Assistance Program alone, we've served 1,100 households to secure permanent housing last fiscal year, and it continues this year. Recently, the San Diego Housing Commission employees had a huge victory. Housing specialists can officially be represented by the SEIU union. Since the late 1990s, housing specialists were established, and after decades of advocating and union stewards organizing housing specialists, it is possible now to be an official SEIU member. Immediately after the announcement, we had 100% of housing specialists sign their SEIU cards, and solidarity is the cause of those overwhelming numbers. Another huge victory with that is that the homeless department within San Diego Housing Commission has the first time ever representation through the union. We housing specialists are one of the biggest assets at San Diego Housing Commission, who serve thousands of households to combat the homelessness epidemic in San Diego. Let's move on to the next item and be about the people and continue being the best housing authority in the country. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Aaron. Well, tell you how much we appreciate the housing specialist. The job that you do is tough every day at a time where it's critical for that human connection. So, all right. Next up is Matthew Casa.
Hi, everybody. My name is Matthew Casas. I'm an employee at the San Diego Housing Commission, proudly for 5 years. I'm also a proud SEIU 221 member. I'm also the SDHC Union Chapter President. Okay. Today, I'm here to talk about the recent historic unionization of the housing specialists. The housing specialists most recently started their unionization process approximately 3 years ago. After a massive effort on their part, an overwhelming majority of housing specialists signed cards authorizing union representation. The cards were submitted to SDHC in November of 2022, and after 5 months, members officially became recognized union members. Again, this was historic, and the enthusiasm of the housing specialists is evident with 100% of those that submitted cards becoming paying dues members within days of union recognition. Now, it took SDHC entirely too long to act on the housing specialist request to unionize, and that's something I hope will be rectified moving forward. But I also want to commend SDHC for voluntarily recognizing these members instead of forcing an election. That was the right thing to do, and it deserves recognition. The next topic I want to address is the selection of our next CEO. We urge the Commission to select a pro-worker candidate and that we, SEIU members, are offering to participate in the selection process. I am proud to be an employee of the San Diego Housing Commission. What makes SDHC work are the workers. They deserve a CEO that puts their needs first. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. I look forward to all of the wonderful conversation with Crystal going forward in the future, and again, appreciate all the work that everyone at the Commission does. All right, there are no further speaker slips for public or for the public for consent agenda, public comments. So next, I will ask if any of the commissioners would like to make any comments. Good morning, commissioners. It's good to see all of you. Any comments?
I'm happy to be here.
It's great to see you. Yes. Okay. Vice Chair Klempner.
I'll make this quick because we do have a busy agenda, lots to do. First of all, congratulations to the housing specialists, and we really appreciate everything that you do, and to you and also everybody else following the CEO search. There will be public forum opportunities for input, and we welcome and encourage everybody, residents, the workforce, anybody with an interest in this to participate in those. Secondly, Joy, my special Housing Commission meeting day treats are the fresh coffee, the pastries, and your public comments. So it is wonderful to see you back in person. And lastly, I would just like to say too that we always appreciate hearing from residents and clients, and we want to make it very clear that we appreciate that input. We welcome it. It is important. I think that we would love more of that, even when it is critical or has a complaint. But especially too, because I fall into this category as well, it's always easier to find the time and the energy to go talk about something when there's something that you want fixed, right? It is also, I think, really important for us to hear how these decisions impact people's lives, and in particular for the Housing Commission's workforce, to get that feedback about how important their work is. And so to the resident who spoke, I thank you so much for coming, and we would love to hear from more residents. So thank you.
I'll echo Vice Chair Klempner. I think that the way we look at this at the Housing Commission is that we have a gigantic neighborhood. As Vice Chair mentioned, they're all clients, but they are really all our gigantic neighborhood. So we always appreciate the opportunity to connect, have a conversation, hear more about the things we can do better, hear about the things we need to address. And so it was wonderful. Again, Joy, we appreciate your appreciation. So keep doing it. All right. Seeing no further comments, do I?
Sorry, I take a privilege here.
All right, fair enough. I'm coming back. It's good to see you. Go ahead.
I am appreciative of the workforce. I hate to not have to say that publicly, and congratulations. That is a victorious movement for a workforce continuing to, the pathway to eliminating poverty, right, is through the union. So I'm really glad that we are exercising that in this institution. So congratulations. Good job.
All right. Seeing no further comments from the commissioners, do I have a motion by any of the commissioners and a second to approve items 100 and 101 on the consent agenda? There's a motion by Commissioner Hester. Second by Vice Chair Klemner. All right. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes unanimously 4-0. All right. We'll move next to item 102. And this is the approval of the agreement with PATH to provide provide system navigation related services at the Homeless Response Center. We will take public comments after the staff presentation.
I didn't want to hear from you today.
Oh, you know what, Jeff? I apologize. I rolled right by you, but I had a conversation with you yesterday, so I guess I just took that as you were good. Let me, Casey, while you're getting settled, we're going to give the floor to our interim CEO, Mr. Davis, who's going to enlighten us today with several updates and tidbits of importance. Mr. Davis, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. Just have a few things to share with you this morning. First, the Federal Communications Commission has awarded a $230,000 grant to the Housing Commission. This grant will support local collaborative efforts to bridge the digital divide for people with low income. Council President Elo Rivera joined FCC Commissioner Jeffrey Starks, who created the Your Home, Your Internet pilot program for an event last month to announce the grant. The grant supports awareness, outreach, and assistance for households to apply for the FCC's Affordable Connectivity Program. That program provides eligible households with a monthly discount toward internet service and a one-time discount toward the purchase of a laptop, desktop computer, or tablet from participating vendors. The San Diego Association of Governments estimates that only about 28% of eligible households in San Diego actually participate in the Affordable Connectivity Program. So with this grant, we anticipate reaching out to approximately 120,000 San Diego families that are eligible for the program. As we heard from a senior resident of one of our affordable housing properties, internet access opens a world of opportunities and information. It makes a significant difference, and we look forward to this grant-funded effort and additional activities in our digital inclusion project. Also in April, our first-time homebuyer program for the City of San Diego achieved a significant milestone. Our program has now helped more than 6,000 families become homeowners since 1988, when the Housing Commission began assisting first-time homebuyers. This slide shows just a few of the homebuyers that we assisted in recent years. The number of households assisted include those who have received deferred payment loans, closing cost assistance grants, or mortgage credit certificates. Buyers in our affordable for-sale housing program are also included. In recent years, because of our staff's expertise and knowledge, other jurisdictions have also approached the Housing Commission about administering their programs for first-time homebuyers. The Housing Commission now administers these programs for the County of San Diego and the cities of Chula Vista, El Cajon, and La Mesa. So big-time congratulations to our single-family housing finance department for achieving this milestone. Finally, we have completed a manual of homelessness programs in the city of San Diego. We created this manual in consultation with the city's Homelessness Strategies and Solutions Department. It provides a comprehensive list and description of the wide range of homelessness programs and services administered by the Housing Commission and by the city. This manual also includes a list of frequently used terms and acronyms and a glossary of programs. These are similar to the terms and glossary that are part of the Housing Commission onboarding manual that we completed last year. We will be posting the homelessness program manual on the Homelessness Solutions page on the Housing Commission's website. I want to thank Councilmember Von Wilpert, who requested this manual during the last meeting of the Select Committee on Housing Commission Oversight and Reform late last year. And also thank you to the Housing Commission staff, the team at the city's Homelessness Strategies and Solutions Department for working together on this valuable effort. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jeff Davis. Again, it was wonderful to hear from you this morning. We will now go back to where I was headed before my oversight in the interim CEO's report, and that is to item 102. And this item will be presented by Casey Snell, Vice President of Administration of Homelessness Initiatives, and Jessica Adamo.
Did you do the minutes?
I don't think I did. I think I skipped right over it into the public comment because we had speaker slips that threw me off. All right, so let's go ahead and do the minutes from the last meeting. I think what happened is I skipped the whole page. Okay, next is the approval of the minutes for the regular meeting of April 6th and the special meeting of April 20th. If there are any speaker slips that have been submitted, none have been submitted to Scott Marshall. So, commissioners, do you have any changes to the minutes, or do we have a motion on the minutes from the meeting of April 6th and the special meeting of April 20th?
So moved.
We have a motion by Vice Chair Klempner. We have a second by Commissioner Vasquez. All right. Any additional comments? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries unanimously 4-0. Okay, so we've done the minutes. We've done the interim, the report from the CEO. I think I'm back on the right page now. Okay, item 102. Casey, I hope you had enough time because my errors to get
We're ready.
You ready?
Yeah.
All right, so Casey Snell and Jessica Adamo, the Housing Programs Manager, will now present this item. Please begin when you're ready.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. We are requesting approval of the sole source justification in fiscal year 2024 operating agreement between the Housing Commission and People Assisting the Homeless, or PATH, to provide system navigation and related services at the Homeless Response Center. The Housing Commission operates the Homelessness Response Center, or HRC, based on a memorandum of understanding between the City of San Diego and the Housing Commission that first took effect on November 1st, 2020. The Housing Commission administers a contract with PATH that first took effect on May 10th, 2021, to operate the system navigation services located at the HRC. The HRC's main objective is to streamline access to resources within the city's homelessness crisis response system by pairing core supportive services with system navigation services in one location. The HRC supports the goal to decrease unsheltered homelessness in City of San Diego's Community Action Plan on Homelessness, and a key strategy in the action plan, approving the performance of existing systems. The HRC is located at 1401 Imperial Avenue in downtown San Diego. It is open Monday through Thursday from 8 to 4 and 8 to 2 on Friday and Saturday. The HRC is closed on Sundays. The Housing Commission operates the HRC with PATH as the lead on-site partner, providing system navigation services and other related services. This model streamlines and centralizes access to both on-site and off-site services and resources. All services are geared toward removing barriers and creating a pathway to housing for San Diegans experiencing or at risk of homelessness. The HRC's four main functions are co-located service providers on site, system navigation services operated by PATH, the coordinated shelter intake program that Housing Commission staff operates, and a service coordination team also operated by the Housing Commission. In addition to PATH acting as the on-site lead service provider, 10 partner agencies provide an array of services at the HRC. These on-site services include employment support, enrollment into benefits such as CalFresh and Medi-Cal, and services focused on transition-age youth and veterans. The list of the 10 agencies and the services they provide are shown on this slide. As the lead partner agency located at the HRC, PATH provides system navigation and basic needs support. System navigation services are offered through a case management service model to program clients who are not receiving housing-focused case management services from another provider agency. PATH system navigation case management services include developing a client housing plan, including stabilization strategies and client housing goals and objectives. PATH also provides assistance with housing applications and advocacy for clients with prospective landlords. PATH offers basic needs services to all program clients, such as bus passes, hygiene supplies, and information and referrals to other local services not located on site at the HRC.
This slide shows PATH system navigation outcomes since the HRC opened its doors on May 10, 2021. PATH provides assistance to individuals and families experiencing homelessness at an average of over 1,400 visits per month. This includes system navigation case management services for the 450 individuals currently enrolled in those services, and providing basic services and assistance to the hundreds of individuals who walk into the HRC daily. Notably, in fiscal year 2022, 38% of program exits were to permanent housing destinations, exceeding the contract outcome by 12%. PATH has already exceeded the 26% benchmark and is on track to meet similar outcomes for fiscal year 2023. Another main function of the HRC is the Coordinated Shelter Intake Program, also known as CSIP. Housing Commission staff operate CSIP on-site at the HRC 7 days a week. These staff members facilitate shelter referrals from outreach workers and other community stakeholders into city-funded shelters in San Diego. The coordinated shelter intake process was piloted at the Convention Center during Operation Shelter to Home starting in 2020 and filled a gap in the homelessness response system that was identified during this time. The process was replicated and implemented on April 5th, 2021. CSIP staff members work closely with shelter operators to place people experiencing homelessness into shelter in a streamlined, methodical manner, which also ensures maximum utilization of all city-funded shelter beds. This slide shows the number of shelter referrals CSIP received and the number of those referrals who enter a shelter by fiscal year. The data on this slide are not deduplicated, as a client may seek shelter more than once over the course of the fiscal year. In fiscal year 2023 alone, from July 1, 2022 through March 31st, 2023, CSIP received over 13,000 referrals, with 4,506, or 33%, of those referrals resulting in enrollment into a shelter. Shelter placements are contingent on the number of shelter beds available on any given day. Referrals are limited to approved partner organizations and are facilitated on a first-come, first-served basis. The intake coordinators take an array of factors into consideration when reviewing a shelter referral, to include client choice, the appropriate bed accommodation based on the individual needs, and shelter availability. The city's portfolio of shelter programs are often operating at or above 90% capacity, which directly impacts the program's ability to accommodate every referral. To ensure the continued operation and provision of case management and related services to HRC clients, a non-competitive process under Procurement Policy 9.4 will be utilized to procure PATH as the provider of system navigation and related services at the HRC. PATH has operated the HRC system navigation since May 10, 2021, when the HRC began serving clients. As the sole operator since this time, PATH is positioned to continue providing these services since relationships have been built and fostered with the HRC's mutual clients. Using a non-competitive procurement process ensures uninterrupted case management and related services for HRC clients. The proposed funding sources to operate the system navigation and related services provided by PATH during fiscal year 2024 are city general funds in the amount of $498,154 and city low moderate income housing fund in the amount of $250,000 for a total of $748,154 in funding. The 2 option years will be exercised upon the appropriation of said funds by the City of San Diego. Housing Commission staff recommends that the Board of Commissioners take the actions detailed in the staff report and shown on the next 2 slides. That concludes our presentation. We are available to answer questions.
Thank you very much. Excellent presentation and excellent handouts, by the way. Questions? Comments? Commissioner Vasquez? Okay.
Yes, so I appreciate the work that was done in
evaluating how we can procure the quality of the brokers that deal with the San Diego Housing Commission. It's my understanding that you guys are, that you guys are looking for or searching for business practices or business history of the brokers if they're going to become our brokers. And so I appreciate that. I also am looking at the amendments that are going to be made, right? Am I on the wrong issue? Wrong issue. Okay, so this is 102 per.
This is the PATH contract.
Okay,
So we'll do that.
apologize. Okay, never mind.
Okay, no problem.
Okay.
You have Vice Chair Clement.
Yeah, I'll jump in. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you, Path, for the wonderful work. I think this is one of the most important points of contact with our unhoused population. We all know this is an incredibly complex issue, but and my math here is not fantastic, but if we just take the contract extension and assume that we're going to have the same number of placements that we had the previous year, my rough math comes out to about $68 per shelter placement, which seems like a fantastic value in terms of when we think about what goes into that process of connecting somebody to the shelter. So this seems like a fantastic value proposition. The one kind of comment I would say that is not, specific to this contract, but it was noted that, one of our greatest limitations here is that our shelters are operating at capacity most of the time. And so, this is kind of another example of how the lack of overall capacity that we're dealing with hampers every step of the process of connecting somebody who's unhoused to shelter and to housing, and we have a disconnect in the middle there that is limiting how effective this program can be through no fault of PATH or anybody else there. And so I just wanted to highlight that even the things that are not shelter operation themselves are all connected to how much shelter capacity that we have. And so with that, I'd like to appreciate the steps that the City of San Diego is taking to add capacity and the steps that the Housing Commission are taking as well. But I just wanted to make sure that, we were all thinking about that capacity issue, even as it relates to the things that are not directly operating a shelter. So thank you to everybody.
All right. Any further comments? So, Casey, Jessica, I want to, and Jonathan, I see you sitting there. First of all, I think you guys do a fantastic job every day. This is not an easy arena because the point of contact, as Vice Chair Clinton mentioned, this is so important because a lot of people are navigating the system for the first time, navigating homelessness for the first time. And they don't know what they don't know, and they're just looking for some sort of solution. I think I was struck in the presentation by the fact that when you look at the chart on slide 6, you show the numbers of 16,782 total visits from July 1 of 21 to June 30 of 22. And then you go into the next one, 12,970. I looked at the shelter placement slide on slide 8. At a time where the population seems to be growing, and the number of people walking through the door looking for guidance and support is growing, I'm just going to say it conflicts with the fact that the budget that we're getting from the general fund is flat. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a little bit of a surprise. Because the problem's getting worse, the number of people needing help and asking for guidance is getting bigger, and Vice Chair Klempner is always good with the numbers, and I think that this number stands out because year 1, year 2, year 3 are the same amount. It's almost like, okay, well, even if it gets worse, you got to make do. So I think that's a little bit of a concern for me, because when people come in looking for some sort of guidance, they're looking for some hope. And we are going to open up more. There's more shelter capacities being made available. And I commend the mayor and the council for looking at that. I hope that we can come back and have a conversation with the mayor and council about probably the need to maybe adjust this number in order to try and address the growing need that we see happening in the streets of San Diego. So is that a fair statement, Casey?
Yes, and just to clarify, this contract is just for a segment of services provided at HRC. The overall budget for HRC is just over $2 million.
Okay.
But it's covered, well, the Housing Commission administers programs there, so it covers more of our costs. But I will say, just to piggyback on what you said, having a brick and mortar is so important to access shelter. Our outreach workers do a fabulous job in getting them to the right place, but we see looking at Deanna, hundreds of folks that walk up because they know that this is where they can get connected, and it is terrible to not have a resource when they need it.
Sure. Yeah. Again, I mean, you walk in looking for an answer, and sometimes you leave, and so that is the difficult part. But aside from that, other than the budget, Casey, if we need more money, I'm assuming that we are asking.
Yes, we've laid out priorities. We're a huge proponent of this program because, again, the brick and mortar is so important. But really, capacity, we need more outreach workers. It's hard, right, when you're dealing with an issue of this magnitude. But certainly, through PATH, we're funding about only 7 case managers that are dealing with the case. Well, you see the numbers, so we've got about 7 staff.
And what would you say would be optimum? And if Casey had a magic wand and it could,
I'll look to Deanna to answer that. The average caseload for a case manager, I think, is 1 to 40, so.
Good morning, Deanna Van Rev. I oversee the day-to-day operations of the Homelessness Response Center. It was a great presentation. Thanks for talking about all the data and everything that we see every day. We would like to take a look at that question and come back if that works for you, because it is generally about 1 to 40. But we would want to take a look at where we have some additional needs, and then we can provide that information. Okay,
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Again, my only reason for asking that question is this is where this is where they're supposed to get help. That's a solution, and if we are limited in our ability to provide that solution and provide that human connection and that guidance and that spark of hope, if we need more resources in terms of staff, we're better to ask for it than to not say anything at all. Okay, all right. Thank you. Any further comments, questions? Seeing none, no speaker slips have been provided for this item. No further comments or questions, so I guess we need a motion from the commissioners and a second on this item. So moved. Motion by Vice Chair Klempner, second by Commissioner Hester. Therefore, no further comments. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None, no extensions. Let's see, so the motion carries unanimously 4-0. Thank you very much for the presentation. Next up is item 103, and this is the approval of an agreement with the Alpha Project to operate the city's bridge shelter for single adults currently at 1535 Newton Avenue. We will take public comments after the staff presentation. Casey Snell is still sitting here, and she has been joined by Jonathan Herrera, Special Programs Manager and Senior Policy Advisor, and they will present this item. Please begin when you are ready.
Good morning, Commissioners, again. This morning we're presenting staff's recommendation to approve the fiscal year 24 agreement between the Housing Commission and Alpha Project to operate the City of San Diego's bridge shelter for single adults currently at 1535 Newton Avenue. The Housing Commission administers the contracts for the city's homeless shelters and services programs based on a memorandum of understanding between the Housing Commission and the city that first took effect on July 1st, 2010. The City and Housing Commission are in the process of finalizing an overarching MOU that will cover all programs that the Housing Commission administers on behalf of the city. We anticipate presenting that MOU to you for consideration next month. Alpha Project has operated the bridge shelter for single adults at Newton since its inception in July 2017. In fiscal year 2020, the Housing Commission issued a request for proposal, and Alpha Project was selected as the operator. The agreement was for a 1-year term with 2 one-year options to renew. The proposed actions before you today will allow the Housing Commission to enter into a non-competitive agreement with Alpha Project to continue to operate the program for 1 year with a 1-year option for renewal. The program will provide up to 276 congregate shelter accommodations for adults experiencing unsheltered homelessness in the city. The shelter program operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in the East Village community of downtown San Diego. The program provides low barrier shelter in alignment with Housing First principles. Referrals are facilitated through the Coordinated Shelter Intake Program, which the Housing Commission administers. In addition, this intervention supports the Community Action Plan on Homelessness for the City of San Diego and the Housing Commission's strategic plan. The Bridge Shelter Program provides safe, low-barrier interim shelter and a diverse portfolio of supportive services. The program uses practices aligned with harm reduction and trauma-informed principles, including housing-focused case management, coordination with and referral to county, state, and federal programs, connections to social services, assistance in locating safe and affordable permanent or longer-term housing options, including housing interventions outside of the coordinated entry system, and assistance with housing applications and supportive or subsidized housing paperwork. Basic shelter services include appropriate residential services and staffing, a maximum of 276 beds and other residential furnishings, showers, wash stations, restrooms, laundry facilities, and personal storage, laundered linens, and routine operating and client supplies, telephone access, messaging, and mail services.
Alpha Project is a well-established homeless service provider with approximately 30 years of experience serving individuals and families experiencing homelessness. Alpha Project serves more than 4,000 men, women, and children annually through a comprehensive portfolio of homeless service programs that includes street-based case management, interim and bridge shelters, permanent supportive housing, rapid rehousing, residential treatment programs, employment services, and peer support services. Alpha Project has successfully operated several shelters, including 2 of the city's bridge shelter programs, the Rosecrans Shelter, and over 600 beds as part of Operation Shelter to Home. To date, in fiscal year 2023, the Bridge Shelter Program at the Newton Avenue location has served 757 individuals. 67 of those clients, or 9%, have exited to a permanent or longer-term housing destination. In fiscal year 2022, the program served 1,059 individuals. Of those, 95 clients, also 9%, have exited to a permanent or longer-term housing destination. Alpha Project was chosen to continue to operate the bridge shelter through a non-competitive procurement process under Procurement Policy 14.2. Alpha Project has been operating the program since its inception in July of 2017. A request for proposal process for this project would not be viable as the program is scheduled to relocate to a site to be determined in the second quarter of 2024. The continuity of care throughout the transition and final determination of the associated logistics by the City of San Diego is also in the best interest of the clients who will be impacted by the program's relocation. As outlined in the table on this slide, funding for the initial term of the operating agreement with Alpha Project totals $6,608,164. The funding source for this bridge shelter is anticipated to be Homeless Housing Assistance and Prevention Program funds. This will be determined during the city's fiscal year 2024 budgeting process. Option years will be exercised contingent upon the availability of funding from the City of San Diego for that purpose. Housing Commission staff recommends that the Board of Commissioners take the actions detailed in the staff report and shown on the following slides. That concludes our presentation. We're available to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. My fellow commissioners, any comments or questions about the program that Mr. Bob McRoy fantastically operates? Commissioner Vasquez.
I have a relevant question this time.
Okay. Commissioner Vasquez, I want to apologize because I started the meeting off completely confusing, so it's no, don't worry about it. It's on me.
Well,
okay?
I appreciate that, but I have to pick up my part. So it's wonderful reporting about getting people off the street and making sure that they have permanent housing. I noticed that it's only 6%. What is it that you think the organization needs in order to increase the number of people that are able to transition into permanent housing? I mean, if I'm putting you on the spot, I apologize. I just would like to see that number increase.
Well, what we do know for folks that are currently in shelter, this is data we look at every month, only about 3% are matched to a homeless housing resource. So as you can imagine, the lift is large. So I would say we're seeing a positive turn in data where folks are able to self-resolve. And that is, I think, a testament, and Lisa has said this before, of the strong case management services and support they're getting on site at the shelters. But truly, you know, there's not enough, again, housing resources that can accommodate the overwhelming need. And we are seeing things pick up a little bit, and we're hopeful, but I don't know, Jonathan, you want to add?
The availability of affordable housing interventions is definitely at the heart of the shelter's ability to successfully place individuals into housing, and we recognize through our case management practices to not solely rely on the availability of subsidized housing resources. Recent data from the RTFH indicates that an overwhelming majority of positive exits from shelter environments are not through subsidized housing interventions, and are through those that are being able to self-resolve, developing a savings plan, roommate sharing situations, and we'll continue to work with our operators to standardize and bolster those practices. As a portfolio, fiscal year to date, our positive exit rate is actually just above 30%. There are difficulties across different programs based on the subpopulations that we're seeing, as well as the available services that are available on site. So there's an array of factors, but the underlying current is the lack of affordable housing interventions for individuals.
Thank you. And I think that we all understood that. As a follow-up question, do you guys collect a report as to why the people are disclosing that they're homeless and giving that information so that we can collect it at these locations, right? It's like an intake form as to what the reasons are that they're giving that they're homeless.
It might be included as part of an intake just to help build and, you know, their housing plans and their service plans, but it's not a data point we collect consistently in HMIS. The only data that's, you know, there's the question of where did you sleep last night, but we don't know where or how long. That generally comes in assessments. During the point in time count, they'll do specialized surveys to get more in-depth information to support the overall data we collect, but we don't actually have any data that we could share on that specific.
And the only reason, just as a follow-up comment, the only reason I ask is because there are some people that believe that, you know, as high as 70% of the people that are homeless because of mental health issues, and yet I don't know which one is first. Are they having mental health issues because they're homeless, or are they homeless because they have mental health issues? I know if I was on the street, I would probably not be in my right mind. So it would be, I think, helpful for the population as a whole to not blame the homelessness problem on people's lack of access to health care, and instead address the real reasoning, whether it be because of domestic violence, because of a lack of financial support within the family unit, or, you know, or a loss of jobs, or just unable to select or obtain affordable housing units. So I appreciate all the work you guys do, and thank you for entertaining my series of questions.
I could say that in the last data set, I know it's outdated, there was the number one reason that folks did identify was because of a medical emergency or life. It was a change in life status, and then I think the second one was loss of employment. So
thank you.
Vice Chair Klopner.
Thank you for the presentation. A few questions. I hope I don't catch anybody off guard here. This is very, very specific. Do we know the average daily vacancy rate at Alpha Project?
Thank you. So as of yesterday, we do collect this on a daily basis. Information as of yesterday evening had this program at a 97% capacity, right in line with the system capacity at large.
Got it. Is that reflective of an average? That's generally kind of what we're seeing. And I'm assuming that that's functionally 100%, because at any given, it seems like 3 out of 100 beds turning over at any given moment would be pretty normal. So again, we're back to our capacity issue, and I think that really does point to how important it is to continue this, because we certainly can't move the other direction. My next question is on the services provided with respect to substance use disorder, which is a increasing problem. We're very aware of this, and there's funding sources related directly to this. Do we have ideas or suggestions about ways to enhance the services we're providing in the context of a shelter with respect to substance use disorder?
We've definitely learned a lot about the improvements on service delivery practices through the operations of the harm reduction shelter, which we'll be presenting on here in just a moment, and integrating the availability of those supportive services, not by referral, but having them on site. Although there are established relationships with family health centers in the county of San Diego, whereby Alpha Project can refer these clients, or they do periodic site visits, integrating it into the service model as part of the service delivery practice is absolutely critical to being able to see individuals get connected to those resources and stabilize on an ongoing basis.
So am I understanding correctly that if we had the resources and the ability, one of the best things we could do would be to provide those resources on site at Alpha Project and other shelters rather than having to send people elsewhere? I appreciate that, and while that's not covered in this contract, I think while we're looking at these contracts, it's important for us to be thinking about what we could do to enhance, as well as what's already going on in the contracts, and so that's helpful insight for other topics, and I think you can assume that I'll have similar questions on the next item that you referenced as well. So, but I wanted to get that in with respect to. We'll call it a standard shelter as opposed to a harm reduction oriented shelter. So thank you. That's all I have. Appreciate your answers and information.
All right. Seeing no further comments, I will add a few things. I want to go back to something that Commissioner Vasquez asked Jonathan and Casey. At the HRC, is it possible, I see Deanna, did she leave? I don't know if she left. Is it possible to ask the question, because I think there's a lot of assumption. Jeff Davis and I have had this conversation. We were all predicting this year rent increases 10% at all. We would force more people onto the streets. Is it possible, do we collect this at the HRC? When people come in for that initial contact of, I need some guidance of where I can go, do we ask the question of, you're here for the first time, why? Because the reason why I ask that is I think it's important for us to, as a housing commission, I think we have to help the city segment the problem better. So, we keep saying affordable housing. I think that one of the things that we're running into is we all know we need more housing. I mean, the grand jury just said we need more housing. Everybody knows we need more housing. Getting more housing approved and built is not always going to be easy, but I do think that if we start to use data to make the point that if indeed more people are coming into the HRC and saying, listen, I'm being forced out because my rent went up $300 and I just can't afford it, right? And you start to segment it that way. I get medical emergencies, we hear that all the time, but I do think that more data around that initial, again, in the HRC, why are you here? Why are you here is this your first time here? Why? What happened, right? Because that allows us to have a much deeper conversation with policymakers that says, okay, and we keep saying we need to build more affordable housing. I think we also need to, as an organization, say we need to build more appropriate housing for the different segments of the population that are coming into the HRC. Sometimes it's someone was living in a place and they were paying $1,100, $1,200 a month. The rent went up $300. They're like, hey, I can't afford $1,500. It's not like, and so people look at it and go, oh my God, affordable. That's, I don't want, no, that's someone who's just working hard and the circumstances are, I don't have the additional revenue. So can we collect that data? And it doesn't need to be this broad category of things. It's your rent up, medical emergencies creating homelessness is interesting. But I do think we need to understand it better. And so is it possible to create 4 or 5 categories and then provide us with that data?
I think that's definitely reasonable. When folks walk into the HRC, they are triaged, so we do try to get a better, of course, an understanding so we can get them in the right place. But I'm not sure that they're not tracking that data element. So I think that's something we can definitely look at integrating. I would Deanna's not here anymore, but with the prevention program. She
just raised her hand.
Deanna, did you catch the last of that question? Okay, I would assume that in our prevention programs and the new HIP program, we are collecting as part of the eligibility process what is making you housing and what is impacting your housing stability in order to qualify for their assistance. So they might have some initial data. Deanna, I don't know.
I was upstairs watching, so I just ran back down.
Yeah, I was like, I knew as soon as I said your name, she's like, oh, great.
I'm here. So through prevention and diversion, a lot of the reasons vary. It could be loss of employment, it could be medical issues, it could be a variety of different reasons that people are coming through our program. Through the HIP program, which is our Housing and Stability Prevention Program, that's the most recent program that we launched that provides that flat rate shallow subsidy. What we're actually seeing through that program is that rents are just really unaffordable for a lot of the households that we're seeing come through. And so the most recent data we have shows that of everybody that we've enrolled, about 80% are either 55 plus or have a disabling condition. And the average, let me look at it really quickly because I think I have it.
While you look that up, very sharp to figure out that you can come up with an answer while coming from upstairs
Right, yeah.
as opposed to 2 seats away.
Yeah.
Well done.
Yes,
Yeah, definitely. So the average rents that we're seeing right now are somewhere around $1,500 per month, and the average income of those households is about $2,000.
Yeah.
So you've got about $500 a month that you're working with to make everything else happen.
Yeah.
So we're seeing a lot of people fall into some sort of housing instability, having some sort of housing crisis, and trying to resolve it in any way that they can.
Yeah, so that's important data. And I think, for the three of you, we can be more impactful as an organization if we start to actually publicize this data because that paints a picture, right? It's someone walks into the HRC and says, listen, I was paying $1,500 a month, my rent went up $500. Right. And so the question then becomes to the policymakers, all right, so we need to create a larger stock of opportunity that's in the 2,000, that's in the 1,500 to 2,000 range. And because once you take that number and you break it into percentages in a pie, if 75% of the people that walk into the HRC were paying $1,500 a month and the rent went up, then that tells you directionally, this is our lost area. Right? How do we fix this? Mm-hmm. So I would love to see the data over the last 6 months of what you're hearing when it comes into the HRC because we knew we were going to see a surge. We talked about it. Jeff and I said, hey, listen, boy, 2023 is going to be difficult. So now you're 5 months into the year. What have we been hearing so we can have a better understanding of where the loss, the area of greatest impact has been. Has it been in the 800 to 1,000? Has it been in the 1,000 to 1,500? Has it been, because then it allows us to pinpoint what we need to ask policymakers.
Definitely.
Okay. All right.
Yes. No
Thanks for running down, Deanna. Safety first. Okay.
I'm going to stay here.
Okay. All right. Any further comments, questions? Seeing none, I will be looking for we don't have any public comment on this, so I'll be looking for a motion and a second.
So moved.
Motion by Vice Chair Klemner. Second by Commissioner Vasquez. All right. All those in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Aye. Nays, no abstentions. The motion carries unanimously 4-0. Thank you. We will now continue on to item 104, and this is the approval of an agreement with the Alpha Project to operate the city's harm reduction interim shelter program. We'll take public comments after the staff presentation. Casey and Jonathan, the floor is once again yours. Please begin when you're ready.
Thank you. We're presenting staff's recommendation to approve the fiscal year 24 agreement between the Housing Commission and Alpha Project for the operation of the City of San Diego's Harm Reduction Interim Shelter Program. The Housing Commission administers the contracts for the City of San Diego's homeless shelters and services programs based on a memorandum of understanding between the Housing Commission and the city that first took effect on July 1st, 2010. On June 25th, 2019, a third MOU between the city and the Housing Commission was approved for the ongoing provision of homeless shelters and service programs. The MOU is effective July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2024. The Housing Commission has administered the contract for the Harm Reduction Interim Shelter Program since its inception in October 2021. In conjunction with the County of San Diego's Behavioral Health Services, the Harm Reduction Shelter provides 44 congregate shelter accommodations for adults experiencing unsheltered homelessness in the city of San Diego who are also experiencing co-occurring substance use and mental health conditions. The program operates 24/7 and is in the Midway District community of Point Loma. The program provides safe, low-barrier interim shelter and a diverse portfolio of supportive services. Practices align with harm reduction and trauma-informed principles. They include case management, care coordination, peer support services, substance abuse treatment, medication-assisted treatment, mental health services, and access to public benefits. The program supports the Community Action Plan on Homelessness for the City of San Diego and the Housing Commission's strategic plan. During fiscal year 22, the program operated from December 2021 through June 2022 and served 150 people. Of those, 13% exited to permanent or other longer-term housing. To date, in fiscal year 23, the program has served 117 people. 34% of them have exited to permanent or other longer-term housing. This program aligns with Housing First principles with low barriers to entry and operation. The program provides housing-focused case management, which includes the development of a housing plan and support with identifying permanent or other longer-term housing options, coordination with and referrals to county, state, and federal programs, supportive services and connections to an array of community resources, assistance in locating safe and affordable permanent or other longer-term housing, including determining housing interventions and opportunities outside of the coordinated entry system, and assistance with housing applications. Basic shelter services include residential services and staffing, a minimum of 44 beds, a minimum of 2 meals a day, showers, wash stations, restrooms, laundry, and belongings storage, telephone access, message, and mail services. Alpha Project manages day-to-day shelter operations, including residential services, on-site security, ancillary facilities, and site management. Alpha Project will also provide housing navigation services aimed at reducing the amount of time a person experiences homelessness by providing the necessary supports to exit the client to permanent or longer-term housing.
On behalf of the County of San Diego, Family Health Centers of San Diego will provide a diverse portfolio of supportive services, including outreach and engagement, case management, multidisciplinary care coordination, peer support services, substance abuse treatment, medication-assisted treatment, mental health services, and access to public benefits. Alpha Project has extensive experience providing housing opportunities and supportive services for the target population. It operates Casa Rafael, a state licensed and certified residential treatment program for men in recovery, which employs evidence-based and harm reduction principles. With approximately 30 years of experience working directly with people experiencing homelessness, Alpha Project has operated several of the city's bridge shelter programs since their inception in 2017. As part of Operation Shelter to Home, Alpha Project was one of 3 providers that operated out of the convention center and was responsible for the operation of over 600 beds. Alpha Project's portfolio of programs includes street-based case management, interim bridge shelters, permanent supportive housing, rapid rehousing, residential treatment programs, employment services, and peer support services. On March 15, 2023, the Housing Commission issued a request for proposals seeking an operator for the City of San Diego Harm Reduction Interim Shelter Program. The RFP was posted and made available for download on the Planet Bids website through both the Housing Commission's and City of San Diego portals. More than 2,000 notifications were sent through the Planet Bids system, and 22 potential bidders downloaded the solicitation. At the RFP closing on April 12th, 2023, the Housing Commission received a proposal from one respondent. A source selection committee evaluated, scored, and ranked the response based on the following criteria: program operations, client and residential services and care coordination, equity and inclusion, community considerations, cost proposal, and organizational experience and capacity. Alpha Project's proposal demonstrated both the capacity and qualifications necessary to operate the program. As outlined in the table on this slide, funding for the initial operating term of the agreement with Alpha Project totals $1,979,237. The funding source for the harm reduction interim shelter is anticipated to be city general funds. This will be determined during the city's fiscal year 2024 budgeting process. Option years will be exercised contingent upon the availability of funding from the City of San Diego for that purpose. Housing Commission staff recommend that the Board of Commissioners take the actions detailed in the staff report and shown on the following slides. That concludes our presentation.
Thank you very much. Comments, questions, Commissioners? Vice Chair Klempner, I see you are ready.
Thank you again. So before I ask questions, I just want to point out for the general public here that for the most recent full year data, 58 million Americans have a diagnosed mental health disorder, and 61 million have a substance use disorder. The vast majority of those people are housed. And the reason for that is that they either live in a market where housing costs are something that they can sustain even with their conditions, or they have resources available to remain housed in a market like San Diego that's very expensive. So this is obviously a big part of the challenge we have with addressing homelessness, but it is not unique to the unhoused population. And the thing that is kind of jumping out to me here is that we have a very high success rate in placing folks in housing, and I want to, with this program in particular, I believe it's 34% here, and obviously the requirement for the shelter is what we would it be fair to say more challenging cases? What is our what is that the comparison number to other shelters that don't fall into the harm reduction specifically?
So 16th that we just reviewed was 9%. Most of them lie somewhere between 9 to 12%.
So we've got roughly 3 times as many exits to housing from the harm reduction shelter than other shelters, despite the fact that we have the most challenging cases with the highest needs going to the shelter. Is there any sobriety requirement on the people completing this program going into housing?
No, there's not.
So we have people who are in this program many times, if not majority of the times, are not necessarily resolving their underlying conditions. However, they are resolving their homelessness. What could we carry from this program across other shelters in terms of best practices?
So I think we spoke briefly about it during the last presentation in terms of the integration of on-site supportive services, the smaller environment, and although a congregate facility, not nearly as dense as some of the other larger congregate shelters, definitely has an impact on staff's ability, along with their partners, to build rapport and establish a greater understanding of those individuals' needs. And again, I can't emphasize more the availability of those on-site resources to be able to help individuals stabilize. Over 90% of individuals that are exiting that program are connected with health insurance and other supportive systems to ensure that post-exit they are able to maintain their stability. A significant portion, over 70%, are also being enrolled in non-cash benefits, again, assisting them in maintaining their stability post-placement.
Jonathan, you've got all the answers at your fingertips today. Well done.
It is impressive. He's like, well, hang on, get a pen.
I appreciate that. Do either of you have any ideas on how we might efficiently extend, particularly with respect to the substance use treatment and the on-site availability of that, how we might quickly and efficiently extend that into other shelters and have it be available there? I realize this is like adjacent to the actual item, but this is such an important item that I think we need to think about it.
I will say the City County Housing Commission have been coordinating a lot. We've been more intentional in our coordination in the last couple of years with the Rosecrans shelter. That's another model. It's only been operating since September, so we don't have a lot of data yet, but the full integration of behavioral health services and again, to Jonathan's point, it's extremely critical. I think there's several opportunities. There's different funding sources coming to the city to maybe further integrate substance use disorder treatment and services directly on site to different shelters. But I think if you asked any shelter provider, hands down, they would say that's the resource they need, because their focus is housing. And of course they're knowledgeable, but this is such a unique niche of, not unique, but it's a challenging web of services and complexities in itself, and having expertise available when a client needs it and is ready to make a change is critical.
I appreciate that. And you indirectly touched on my last comment here, which is I know this has not been in operation long enough to have a really complete picture of all the data, but I do think that one of the things that would be good to track that, I think that as this continues, you'll probably just I don't think you need to do anything differently. We will get this data, but I'm interested in what the outcomes are once people reach housing, when they successfully exit the program, for that 34% that are housed, whether they're able to successfully remain housed and stay out of homelessness. That would be important. And I want to be clear before we get those numbers that even if we see additional challenges there, simply the fact that they are entering into stable housing is a success in and of itself that we should be measuring a program like this on. I just think that this is because we have a cohort here that is going through this program that is entering housing at higher numbers. What those longer term outcomes look like would be helpful in terms of the services that we provide on the permanent supportive housing front, or not even on the permanent supportive housing front, but as has been pointed out, many people are going into unrestricted market rate housing that they can afford, and thinking about ways, if additional services are needed to keep them stable, ways we can deliver that outside of the PSH model. But that would be kind of my next question. But we also know that, the biggest hurdle for somebody in this situation is becoming housed. And from that point forward, those are easier problems to address than this big hurdle. So with that said, I want to thank you both for having more answers than I anticipated. I appreciate it, and Alpha Project for the great work on this. And I think this is very clearly sort of telling us what it. And then in closing, as I opened, not everybody who is unhoused lives in a shelter or on the street or in their car or anywhere else has a mental health or addiction problem. We don't even know that it is a majority. And the vast majority of people who do have those conditions are not unhoused. They are stably housed. So this is a piece of the problem. This is not the entire problem. So thank you.
Commissioner?
I really want to thank both of you. You've been really helpful in terms of, really understanding the broader issue at hand. I want to surface two things that I thought is important in this discussion as we try to define really the nucleus of some of these problems. Loss of job and medical emergency. Two things that is causing highest number of people being pushed into the homelessness. And I want to surface that because as we talk about policy, right, it moves us off of housing perhaps, but until we resolve that and until we challenge that, the housing homeless population is going to continue to grow. So that's what I want to surface. I don't have the answer, but we have a lot of smart people in this room. I believe in all the smart people that work in this institution and city. And I think that we got it. I think we got to figure it out. And thank you for sitting there and hearing us out.
Okay, I will just add a couple of things. I love the direction that of the last two commissioner comments. I would offer this that even when unemployment is at an all-time low here in this region, we are still seeing people forced to the streets, and again, we have a housing crisis. No one can deny that. I saw a poll recently that segment of the respondents said, "There's not really a housing crisis, right?" Okay, maybe looking at two different scenarios, but there is a housing crisis. I think what Vice Chair Klumner mentioned on the success rate of moving someone that has a declared issue with either mental illness or drug and alcohol abuse to housing is the results are fantastic. The initial results, whether they stay stabilized, is key. And I guess my question for you is that what stood out for me in the presentation was 44 beds. We have a behavioral health problem in this country. We have a behavioral health problem in this county, in this region, and I think that what I would offer and ask the team to think about is how can we work even more aggressively with the county right now, in particular Chairwoman Vargas. I think that she and Nick both share the belief that where we can partner and create better outcomes and results, we should. But we really have to build a behavioral health structure that is appropriate for a region this big, this size, with the growing number of problems that we're having around mental health. This is Mental Health Month. May is Mental Health Month, and it's one of the things that every day I read articles about. Men are lonelier and having more mental health problems. Mental health affecting more people. Commissioner Hester just mentioned people. You lose your job, there's a mental health spiral that happens, and so it's moments, periods that psychological instability are created, but again, I don't think we have the structure in place to address it. Now, what Vice Chair Klumner mentioned about integrating this into the shelters, I think is really important. I hope that we can figure out some partnership with the county where that can happen quickly. The previous administration for the city, we had said, look, if we can even create mobile units that are part of contracts where, you can have mobile mental health services that can go shelter to shelter, maybe Tuesdays and Thursdays they're at Newton and Mondays and Wednesdays are another place. That would be a step up, as opposed to having a static location where hopefully if you get in, you get the services. And so I would just ask that we explore that with the county. I think we're long overdue. in a perfect world, you have them embedded every day, all day, but at a minimum, bringing the services to the shelters every week would be, in my opinion, a big step up. So look forward to hearing back from you on what those opportunities are and those options, but good job on the presentation. Any further comments? All right. I will entertain a motion in a second, if there is one. So moved by Commissioner Hester. Second by Commissioner Vasquez. All right. Right. All right. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, seeing none, no abstentions, the motion carries unanimously 4-0. Thank you very much. Next up, once again, taking the stage, item 105, the amendment of the operating agreement with Urban Street Angels for the city's interim shelter bed program for transition age youth. We will take public comments after the staff presentation. Once again, Casey Jonathan, the floor is yours.
Hello again. We're here today to present staff recommendations to authorize an amendment to an existing non-competitive agreement between the Housing Commission and Urban Street Angels to expand operations at the City of San Diego's interim shelter bed program for transition age youth in fiscal year 2024. The Housing Commission administers the contracts for the City of San Diego's interim shelter bed program for transition age youth based on an MOU with the city for the administration and oversight of homeless housing assistance and prevention funded homelessness programs, which first took effect on June 16, 2020. In fiscal year 21, the Housing Commission entered into a sole source agreement with Urban Street Angels to create a 19-bed interim shelter for transition age youth for a 6-month term. In fiscal year 22, the Commission entered into a sole source agreement to continue operations for the fiscal year. In FY23, the Housing Commission entered into another sole source agreement, which included 4 one-year options for renewal. The proposed actions in this presentation will allow the Housing Commission to amend the current non-competitive agreement to increase the program's capacity from 19 to 52 beds. If approved, the USA Interim Bed Program will provide up to 52 service-enhanced shelter accommodations for transition-age youth in the city and represents an increase of 33 beds from the prior year. The shelter site is centrally located in downtown San Diego and has been operational since January 15, 2021. The program specializes in the provision of services for TAY who would otherwise live in locations not intended for human habitation and operates 24/7. Referrals are facilitated through the Coordinated Shelter Intake Program administered by the Housing Commission. The program supports the vision and implementation of the Community Action Plan on Homelessness, as well as the Housing Commission's strategic plan, both of which identify the criticalness of addressing youth homelessness and the provision of emergency shelter options for unsheltered San Diegans. The TAY interim shelter bed service model is delivered in a housing-focused environment that leverages a variety of resources to facilitate successful exits to permanent and or other longer-term housing options. Supportive services include outreach, case management and housing navigation, mental health care, life skills, employment services, transportation assistance, and peer mentorships. In addition, Urban Street Angels leverages privately raised funds and existing in-house supportive services to provide a comprehensive network of resources and service connections for the clients they serve, such as educational opportunities, holistic wellness, nutritional counseling, and substance abuse treatment.
Furthermore, the interim shelter program provides basic shelter services, which includes appropriate residential services and staffing. If approved, a maximum of 52 beds and other residential furnishings, a minimum of 2 meals per day in compliance with all applicable health and safety regulations, showers, wash stations, restrooms, laundry facilities, and storage for personal belongings, routine operating and client supplies, including hygiene products, basic first aid supplies, and cleaning supplies, telephone access, messaging services, and mail service, along with regularly laundered linens. Urban Street Angels specializes in the provision of services for transition-age youth through multiple funding sources, which provide services that range from bridge housing, employment readiness programs, rapid rehousing, and 3 independent living facilities. The organization also has a strategic partnership with the County of San Diego's Behavioral Health Services to connect clients with ongoing supportive systems. In fiscal year 2022, the program served 95 individuals, of whom 23, or 24%, exited to a permanent or longer-term housing destination. In fiscal year 23 to date, the program has served 68 individuals, of whom 24 clients, or 35%, have exited to a permanent or longer-term housing destination. A non-competitive procurement process under Procurement Policy 14.2 was utilized to select the program operator. The process was selected as the program leverages existing site resources controlled by Urban Street Angels, as well as other cash and in-kind funds that are critical elements of the program's service model. The selection of a new operator may also have an adverse impact on program operations and client stability. Annualized operating costs are $2,118,716 for the 12-month period between July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2024, with 3 remaining options for renewal. The agreement requires an additional $120,273 for one-time startup expenses to support the program's expansion in the current upcoming fiscal year. Funding sources are anticipated to include Homeless Housing Assistance and Prevention Program funds and City of San Diego general funds. Option years will be exercised contingent upon the availability of funding from the City of San Diego for that purpose. Housing Commission staff recommend that the Board of Commissioners take the actions detailed in the staff report and shown on the following slides. That concludes our presentation. We are also joined by Ann Lacey, Chief Operating Officer with Urban Street Angels, and are available for any questions.
Thank you very much. Comments, questions? Pretty simple. You want to, oh, question. Go ahead, Commissioner Vasquez. Floor is yours. Oh, there you have it. I just happened to look over and I'm like, is she pointing at the ceiling or is she, I was like, is she stretching? I'm not certain, but yes.
Apologies. I just wanted to ask what the reasoning was for the delta, the difference in the delta of cost of almost $300,000. And looking at the numbers, it's approximately $2.118 million for the ongoing budget, and yet the operating cost is anywhere from $1.7 million to $1.59 million, with a one-time fee of $120,000. So I apologize, but I love numbers too, and I don't understand why there's such a huge delta amount between what you're saying the cost is and what the actual operating expenses are going to be, the 2.1 million. So where I'm looking at that is at the top of the executive report where it says, an additional allocation of 1.7 million for operations, and then $120,000 for a one-time startup fee. Perhaps the $300,000 is, I can't imagine it would be that low, but that's what it currently costs for the program, and you're just increasing it by 1.7.
So on slide 9, the agreement requires an additional allocation of 1.7 consisting of 1.59 for operations and 120,000 for one-time startup costs.
So the current agreement is about $560,000 annually. Through that the current 19-bed program, we're able to leverage some cost of the other programs that currently exist there.
Okay.
But we're taking over the entire building, which means we have to absorb more of those direct costs, security, rent, front desk reception. So that's where you see kind of that we're able to leverage less. That's where that increase comes in.
So you're able to leverage approximately $260,000, right? And that's why there's a $300,000 delta.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Vice Chair Klempner.
We've got all the specialized programs today, it seems like, and I'm going to kind of keep pointing out here that I think that's actually quite fitting. So our exits to stable housing are a bit lower than the harm reduction that we just saw. However, it's still twice the average of the rest of the shelter system. So that similar to harm reduction, TAY obviously has specific challenges, and I would also add that this is a very important program to me because I think that we owe a tremendous amount to transitional age youth that are struggling here, because in almost all cases the issue here is that they don't have family that they can rely on. This makes a lot of sense. I'm happy to see that we are exceeding averages in terms of the exits to housing. Hope the kind of service providers paying attention to this. That is a big metric, and we realize also, every time I say it, I also want to kind of add, we realize that there's a real challenge with those exits because of the reasons that we talked about, namely being there's a shortage of housing available. So the fact that we're able to do well on these fronts, relatively speaking, is great. And if we want those numbers to be higher, we need to have more housing options for people available. So am I understanding correctly? This is coming out to about $125 per bed night. If that's, did I do my math right there? Number of beds. 130. Okay. 130. Given the number of services that are being provided here, that seems like a great value proposition. And then the last thing I wanted to say, I don't really have any questions, I'm sorry. The last thing I wanted to say was, actually, I will ask this as a question. I know that we track kind of risk factors for homelessness, and am I remembering correctly that one of the highest risk factors for chronic homelessness is whether you have experienced homelessness previously in your life? So the interventions here,
Specifically within the transitional age. Specifically within that age of 18 to 24, individuals that experiencing homelessness at that period of their life have exponential rates of experiencing homelessness as an adult.
You are rewarding my rephrasing that into a question. Thank you. So that is fascinating. Okay, so specifically whether somebody experienced homelessness during their transitional age period. So because of all that, this is fantastic. I would love to see our capacity expand, but we're constantly choosing between important priorities. Do we have a sense of, in a world in which our funding is not limited here, do we have a sense of how many TAY would qualify for this if we were to meet the full need of our community in terms of transitional age youth who would use this shelter and these services? Do we have any sense of what that number is? I realize that may be a difficult thing to track.
I don't know, Anna, if you could speak to the need that you're seeing, if it's possible. I know in the most recent RTFH report, they had about, in the system, in the home HMIS right now, there was about over 2,000 transition age youth active to service. I don't know how many of those would need shelter, but I don't know if, Ann, you could speak to what you guys are seeing.
Good morning. How's everybody? Good morning. Thank you. Currently, there's over 1,000 transitional age youth on the street every night. So the theme here is need, and we're absolutely trying to provide that need for the youth in order to break the cycle at this age and wrap any services we have around them in order to have them be successful in the future. In that age group, you're looking at people, it's going to take about 2 years from the street to, being self-sufficient to be able to tackle the issue at hand. So we have to be that starting point.
2 years is probably less time than it took me to become self-sufficient. So congratulations to those
Absolutely.
that pull that off without the support. The 1,000, is that county-wide?
I believe San Diego. The city of, yes.
City of San Diego?
Yes.
Wow. Okay, so we're talking about 52 beds is a small step in the right direction. So thank you so much for answering that question and all the work that Urban Street Angels is doing.
Thank you, and thank you guys for your morning.
May I?
Yes, Commissioner.
Thank you. I I think about the transitional youth and the workforce that they could possibly enter into. And I understand, can you talk a little bit about that? You're pointing.
Yeah, that's an excellent question, and one of the, I think, distinguishing characteristics of TAY service models that distinguish itself from other practices. Within that body of practice is an overwhelming emphasis on employment, education, and entrepreneurship. We've got to give kudos to Council President Elo Rivera in recent conversations with transition age youth that are currently at Golden Hall, led the efforts to ensure these individuals were connected to the City of San Diego's internship program, which often serves as a gateway, not only, and is a paid internship, I may add, and serves as a gateway to, professional careers within civic service. And that overall emphasis, again, on improving self-sufficiency and ensuring that they have the resources at their disposal to ensure that they can pay for housing and other costs of living.
I will say too, just to add, USA has a work readiness program located on site with the shelter. There's a cafe. I don't know if we want to plug it, Ann. Sorry, I don't want to make you stand up again.
Hey, Ann, I can plug it for you, Ann. Timmy's Place. You got to try it.
It's a great program. So.
Say more, address.
It is. It's a great opportunity for our youth. So it's Timmy's Cafe, Pizza and Cafe. It opened literally next door to us. So we've started the whole, we work with UPAC and the YO program in order to start getting some just work experience going in order to enter the job field later. It's great for the youth because it's not intimidating. They have their support right next door. And the people, with UPAC, they work hand in hand with us, and they're amazing working with the youth. Starting off slowly, going through the whole process of, going to fill out your application, going to get your fingerprints done, to entering the workforce. So it's a great place. Love to have you all for lunch. They have breakfast as well. They have coffee and little pastries and pizza for lunch with sandwiches and salads. And it's great. Everybody's really enjoying it.
Mike, this is a population that I worry about a lot. Because they don't have anybody to fall back on, right? And it's really like, it's the city that, hopefully we can do a good job for them. What is there, so they turn 18, they fall off a cliff, right? And then the services then goes to you. And then what is that 2 year? Where do they live? How do they eat?
So they start with us, and from transitional, the model that we're searching for and that we're going for is staying with us in the interim shelter bed, emergency shelter. From there, kind of go over just the basics. You're going to get, your birth certificate, your social security card, making a resume, the basics, getting enrolled in services. From there, they'll move up to our short-term bridge housing, stay there, learn more self-sufficiency, but they still have that support with them. So from the short-term bridge housing, then they would go into rapid rehousing, where they still have a caseworker, but the touches are less. And then from there, hopefully they'll be sufficient within that process in order to be self-sufficient.
How will I know as a 17-year-old to go to you?
So we have a phenomenal website or Instagram, which a lot of people get in touch with us. A lot of it's word of mouth. A lot of it's working with outreach programs. And, being centrally located in San Diego, it's great. People know where we are. They know who we are. Just even walking up, we have our security. They say, okay, let me get a caseworker for you. They fill out the application, we screen them, not really screening because, basically it's being homeless or in jeopardy of being homeless. But, and then from there, we'll get them matched up immediately in order to get them off the street. And we're 100% all the time. And it's almost like a revolving door, so definitely the need is there.
Yeah, and then we have 1,000 kids still sleeping in the street. So I'm like, what is happening?
Yeah, no, it's true.
Yeah. I wanted to just spend some time talking about that, so thank you for the information. And
absolutely.
I look forward to eating at Timmy's Pizza and Cafe.
It's great. It's a lot of fun. The atmosphere is a lot of fun. It's all run by youth, and it's great.
I'll send my union members over there.
And they do catering.
Yes, they do.
Ah.
Yes, they
Thank
do.
you. Noted.
Enjoy. Bon appetit.
I thank you for those questions and all this more information. And I have one more. I think the council president's work on this is worth kind of coming back to for a moment as well. I think it's really important that we hear from people with lived experience, and appreciate everything that staff did with working with him on getting direct feedback from our TAY clients. And specifically, this whole subject, I appreciate you asking about, what employment they are moving into. You can answer this if we have something, but I would more, encourage us to look for opportunities to hire from within our client pool and our population that we're serving. I say that understanding that many of the jobs that everybody in this agency and our partners in the community do are highly specialized, but I think that there is a specialty that comes with the lived experience. So, yeah.
Thank you. Great conversation, and I'll add a few comments on, first of all, to Eric and Ann. I visited one of your sites, and it was an emotional moment for me because you hate to think about someone whose spirit is broken so early in life. And I witnessed a young man who couldn't even look us in the eye. And Eric was good with him. He made him stand there and talk to us, and he's like, we got to build his confidence. And it was kind of a shock almost. But I also saw the care that the organization provides, and met a young lady that had been living in her car and was told you can't live in your car, and they referred her to Urban. And Eric introduced me to her, and he said she was a new person. She was in her room, she was painting, she loved to draw, and it makes you stop and think about the fact that I think, Ann, I heard from you at one point. I mean, we say 1,000, but we know that we have one of the largest TAY populations in the country. Living on the streets, 7th or 8th largest in the country, and we don't even know what the full count is. We know it's 1,000, could be more. A lot of kids are couch surfing, and what happens is that they don't have the basics. Like you said. I mean, I met a few of them at YAC, and they wanted to get jobs, and they don't have birth certificates, they don't have driver's license. All the things that you expect them to have, and what you guys do for employment, right? What Eric and Ann and Heather at YAC and what they all do to help course correct and get them at least a chance to get moving in the right direction is amazing. We need more capacity. I agree with Commissioner Vice Chair Klumpner. We need more locations for you to do the magic that you're doing to take care of this, because these are young adults that actually can become productive working adults if we give them the support they need, the fallback structure that they need. And
I would just add that they are productive.
Yeah. To what they were able to, but we get them moving in even further what you're doing. And so I apologize. I get emotional about it because it was just really hard to see. And Timmy's great job. It's a great example of giving them another opportunity to be successful, getting confidence, and to my hat's off to the council president, because he said, look, let's not just talk about it, let's make it happen, and creating those internships. I think, Ann, you'll remember we actually had a great meeting with SeaWorld, and we had a great meeting with the airport authority. I mean, we pulled together a group meeting to try and create job opportunities for these youth. And SeaWorld was amazing. They're like, I remember the CEO of SeaWorld said, Mitch, if you can get them to the front gate, we'll put them to work. We'll put them all in the same shift, make it easy. And so I think there's this willingness by this community to really take the TAY population and try and help drive them in the right direction. And I was so thankful to Kim Becker, and again the CEO of SeaWorld, and I think we have one or two others, and the partnership amongst the TAY providers is really strong. Walter at San Diego Youth. I could listen to Eric talk about this all day long. And so Casey, Jonathan, I think important area, but kudos to you for working really hard with the partners and try to create the best outcomes possible. So, any further comments, questions?
I'm sorry, Commissioner. I just want to point out, I just Googled Timmy's Pizza, and it didn't even show on the address, the map. We have Tony's, TNT, Tony's, there's no Timmy's. So, just as an added publication for this wonderful program.
Yes. Yeah, it is really wonderful. And they just opened 2 weeks ago? The last week, yeah. Just opened, that's why. So they had the big grand opening. Eric emailed me, he goes, when are you coming out? I'm like, I'll be out soon. Obviously, you heard that there are a lot of us that are going to go out. So, All right. I will entertain a motion on this one, if there is one.
I move to approve action item 105.
Motion by Commissioner Vasquez, second by Commissioner Hester. All right. Any further comments, questions? All right. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Any opposed? No abstentions. It passes unanimously 4-0. Thank you very much once again. Casey's like, finally. There was no public comments, by the way, on that note, so we're good. All right. Next up is item 106. This is the Housing Commission's proposed fiscal year 2024 budget. We will take public comments after the staff presentation. Suket is making his way up to dazzle us with his knowledge of the budget. And so Suket will be joined by Chief Financial Officer Christelle Vanderwit, Christelle, who's Vice President of Financial Operations. So Suket and Christelle, the floor is yours.
Good morning, Chair Mitchell and Commissioners. Thank you for the introduction. I do wish to point out a few of the members from our team. Julie Conserva is our Vice President of Financial Real Estate, and our budget maestros, Matthew Higgins and Leabel Menguita, are also here today. Next slide. So last month, we presented the budget as an informational item, and we're back here to seek your approval. There are no major edits, but we will highlight some changes as we go along the presentation. We'll start with the agency's objectives and deliverables, then we'll go through the uses and sources of funds. But first, at the recommendation of the Housing Authority and the IBA, Scott and Team Communications has created this fabulous narrative report, putting pictures and telling the story versus just throwing numbers at you, and we're very happy with this report and we look forward to your feedback. This report includes anticipated funding sources and uses, our program objectives, the budget review and approval process, narrative descriptions of SDHC divisions and programs, and personal stories from some of the people that we serve. Look forward to your feedback. So we're proposing a budget of $595 million, which includes federal, state, and local sources of funding. The budget is based on conservative estimates and continues to advance our mission to foster social and economic stability for vulnerable populations in the city of San Diego through quality affordable housing, opportunities for financial self-reliance, and homelessness solutions. This slide shows a comparison to budgets from the past 4 years. Our proposed fiscal year 2024 budget reflects a slight increase of approximately $100,000 from fiscal year 2023 budget. With this budget, we will assist approximately 17,000 households with low income pay their rent through the Federal Housing Choice Voucher Program. Around 500 households will be assisted using the emergency housing vouchers, like Jessica and her family pictured on the slide. These vouchers help San Diegans experience homelessness at the risk of homelessness. After years of unstable housing, including stays at hotels and in shelters, Jessica and her 5 children now rent a single-family home with a secure backyard and space to play. Jessica told the Housing Commission the voucher gives her the support she needs to provide a stable household for her family. Assisted households will also continue to be eligible for services at the Housing Commission's Achievement Academy. These include work readiness workshops, access to job skills trainings, and specialized programs like CNA, Certified Nursing Assistant, digital media, single-parent programs, in addition to our Family Self-Sufficiency program. The proposed budget also supports the creation and preservation of affordable housing. We've proposed committing up to $29 million in gap financing to developers. They leverage these with other funding sources to increase the affordable housing supply in our city. These fund developers to create housing like Manasur Apartments. Matthew is an Army veteran who experienced homelessness for 9 years. He moved into a furnished apartment with his dog Bo at Manasur. He shared he appreciates the little things like being able to make a pot pie at his own home. Community Housing Works is the proud developer. Housing Commission awarded $7 million loan and 10 VASH or Veterans Supportive Housing Vouchers to support this development. The Housing Commission, including our nonprofit affiliate, owns and operates over 4,000 affordable rental housing units. We have budgeted $14 million for another acquisition and $7 million to rehabilitate 800 Housing Commission-owned units. In addition, we've dedicated $4.5 million towards assisting 35 San Diegan households become first-time homebuyers. And as Jeff shared earlier, our first-time homebuyer program for the city of San Diego achieved a significant milestone, surpassing 6,000 homebuyers assisted since 1988 when we first started helping families. Housing Commission continues to dedicate substantial resources to address homelessness in the city of San Diego. Our efforts align with the foundational strategies and guiding principles of the Community Action Plan on Homelessness for the city of San Diego. The Housing Commission's Housing First San Diego initiative, which launched in November 2014, also continues to create permanent housing solutions, a need identified in the Community Action Plan on Homelessness. Housing First San Diego continues to grow with the addition of the Housing Instability Prevention Program and the expansion of the prevention and diversion programs. The Housing Instability Prevention Program has had positive impacts on people like Carmel, pictured on this slide. She has a disability and spends virtually her entire income on rent. She had about 4 months of past due rent when she connected with our housing specialist and began receiving assistance in November. She has referred to the program as critical to her remaining in her rental home. We hope to share a lot more success stories in fiscal year 2024. Housing Commission also continues to administer the city's homeless shelters and services and programs like the interim and bridge shelters and the Homelessness Response Center. Cristal will now provide information on the proposed uses of funds, highlighting some of the changes since our workshop.
Thank you, Suket. This is a year-over-year comparison of funding uses by major category. In the proposed budget, anticipated expenses decreased by $8 million or 2% compared to fiscal year 23. I'd like to highlight the main changes made since our budget workshop presentation. The FY24 budgeted personnel costs remain unchanged at close to $54 million. The housing program expense budget has increased by $5 million due to anticipated increased housing assistance voucher expenses. No changes to the property expense budget, and we've added $14 million set aside for property acquisitions in the capital expenditure category. The budget still includes a proposed increase in staffing to add 29 full-time equivalent positions for a total of 395 employees in fiscal year 24. This includes 19 positions for the Homeless Housing Innovation Division to support growing efforts to address homelessness in the city, 4 for the Rental Housing Division, Rental Assistance Division, 3 for the Real Estate Division, and 3 in Operations Support. Next, we'll take a look at our anticipated sources of funds. The table on this slide shows a comparison of funding sources in fiscal year 24 and 23. We have 3 main funding sources: federal, local, and state. Once again here, I'd like to just point the changes that were made since our last budget workshop presentation. The overall fiscal year 24 budget and total sources of funds have increased from $577 million to $595 million, or $18 million increase. This is due to the following factors. In the federal funding section, the Section 8 MTW funding has increased by $21.7 million, primarily due to increased funding for MTW vouchers and additional funding set aside for the property acquisition. Housing innovation funds have increased by $2 million due to newly awarded Continuum of Care, or COC, grant for a moving home rapid rehousing program. We have worked really closely with the City Homelessness Strategy and Solution Department, HSSD, and the $4 million decrease in city general fund and state HAB funds align with the city's proposed budget commitment for homelessness programs. Finally, as a quick reminder, the program and property reserve line item at the bottom of this slide represent our beginning fund balance for program and property reserves. Most of the decrease relate to the $33 million of Housing Stability Assistance Program funds that were part of the fiscal year 23 budget but will not continue in fiscal year 24. Federal revenue continues to be the primary source of funding and accounts for 77% of new revenue, with MTW fund more specifically representing 69% of the budgeted new revenue for fiscal year 24. Today, we are recommending your approval of the proposed fiscal year 2024 budget. And this concludes our presentation. We're available to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Questions? I'm sure Vice Chair Klempner, when he comes back, will have some, so I'll start. So and looking at the, you mentioned the changes, Chriselle, from the last presentation. Can you go back over those again?
Yes. Over here, so you have an increase in Section 8 MTW funding.
Mm-hmm.
That is the main one, with $18 million increase. That's primarily due that since last month that we came to you, we did receive our federal award for the current year, and so we did notice an increase in funding from the federal government.
Yeah. So is that a reflection of? I'm assuming the federal government's saying, "Hey, look, we know the problem's getting worse. We're going to give you more money." Is that fair, or is it? What would you say?
We'll give you more money, that's fair. Problems getting worse, I don't know if they're acknowledging it as openly as we're saying it, but
Okay.
there is an addition of vouchers, so there are more mainstream vouchers, there are more VASH vouchers. And as far as the rate that we used to calculate it, they came up with the inflation factor, which is more than what they had anticipated initially. So yes.
Okay. So on the voucher issue, we were recently in Washington, D.C. on the Chambers trip. Molly was there and Lisa. One of the things that came out of one of the meetings with Congressman Levin on the vouchers, and that's what brought this up. This made me think about this was we were, I think, Molly brilliantly was like, "Hey, this is our opportunity to ask for some more vouchers, right?" And the congressman's comment was, like, I need you guys, the county needs to work on all their vouchers in order for us to even have this conversation. So I'm assuming that the team is talking about how we can work better with the county to help them with their voucher allocations, so that we then are in line to actually ask for more vouchers for the region. Is that fair? Is that a fair statement? Now I caught the interim CEO off guard. He's like, "God, where'd Casey go, man?"
No, I don't think we can say that we are working together with the county to help them lease up their vouchers. We'd certainly be more than happy to take some of their vouchers and lease them up, but they do need to lease in their jurisdiction, which kind of limits our ability to assist them, as well as they are a traditional voucher program. We are a moving to work program, so the program is quite different as well.
Yeah. Okay, so there's the clarification. Is the moving to work is different. I do think this is an opportunity. I think with the current leadership of the county, it's a great opportunity for us to work better with them. No voucher should be unutilized in this region. I think we all would. I think all the commissioners agree. So where we can help partner and make sure that all the vouchers are utilized, we should. And I would love to continue to see the moving to work line grow and the additional money. Whether they want to admit the problem's worse or not, we'll take more money. But I do think this is an opportunity to partner with the county. We should be a little more aggressive in that. I know that in talking with Chairwoman Vargas, this is a big issue for her, homelessness, and this is an issue that she wants to really wrap her arms around and tackle. And so I think this is a great opportunity. And I know that Molly Chase's mind is always thinking about ways for us to do things better. So I'm sure she'll figure something out before the the next meeting. And then I think on the only other question I had is on the real estate side, budget, the change was 9%, so I think you said we're putting more, 14 million more for acquisition. And so we have a target, we set that number for at the target of 14 million. We see some opportunities and therefore, okay.
Correct.
All right. Any further questions? Seeing none? All right, I'll entertain a motion on the budget on this item. There's no public comment on this item, so next up is there a motion and a second? Motion by Vice Chair Klempner. Second by Commissioner Vasquez. Any further comments, questions? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Nays? None. Abstentions? None. The unanimously passes 4-0. Thank you very much. Brilliant job. Thank you. Next up item on the agenda is item 107, and this is the Preliminary Bond Authorization and Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act, otherwise known as TEFRA, easier to say, Colin. Public hearing for 8th Avenue Family Housing. The TEFRA hearing is now open, and we will take public comments after the staff presentation. Jennifer Croter is joining us. She is Vice President of Multifamily Housing and Finance. And Jennifer, Colin, the floor is yours.
All right. Good morning, Chair Mitchell and Commissioners. The item before you today is a request to take the initial steps to issue tax-exempt multifamily housing revenue bonds and hold the TEFRA hearing to facilitate the construction of 8th Avenue Family Housing. 8th Avenue Family Housing will be comprised of 79 affordable units, which will be a mix of studio, 1, 2, and 3-bedroom units, plus 1 unrestricted manager unit. The 79 units will remain affordable for 55 years at 30 to 50% of San Diego's area median income. The development will be located at 3927 to 37.5 8th Avenue in the Hillcrest Neighborhood Council District 3. The development site is currently improved with one building consisting of a 45 single-room occupancy SRO housing units, a 2-bedroom house, and a 1-bedroom unit with a detached garage. All 3 of these sites are currently vacant. This development will actually satisfy the affordable housing requirements for 2 nearby market rate properties. In return for the affordable units, the market rate developers are providing capital funds and donating the land for the project. The developer of the project is Rise Urban Partners, LLC. They have successfully worked on previous developments with SDHC's Multifamily Housing Revenue Bond Program and are currently in compliance with those projects. Site amenities will include a community room, laundry room, and outdoor courtyard area. Services for the tenants will be provided by Pacific Southwest Community Development Corporation and will include health and skill building classes as well as after-school classes. Here's a site map of the development. It is located west of the 163 at 3927 to 37.5 8th Avenue, which is represented by the red pin on the slide. Throughout the next few slides, we'll show the proximity to transit, grocery stores, and schools. So first up is transit. As shown by the red markers with bus icons, multiple bus stops are located near the site on University Avenue. On this side, the proximity to grocery stores is shown. As shown by the red markers with grocery cart icons, there are options close to the site. This slide shows the distance of schools. As shown by the red markers with graduation cap icons, there are also options for schools nearby. The total development cost of the project will be approximately $41.9 million, which equates to $523,000 per unit. Notable sources of funding include a bond finance loan and 4% tax credits, a subordinate loan from National Housing Corporation, and a deferred developer fee. No Housing Commission loan funds are proposed for this development. The development will be comprised of 22 studios, 17 one-bedroom, 22 bedroom, and 23 bedroom units at 30 to 50% of San Diego area median income. Rents will range from $683 to $1,691 per month for the units. Should this be approved today, the developer will apply to SIDLAC for a bond allocation by May 23rd. should the developer receive an award of bonds at the August 23rd meeting, we anticipate bringing this item back for final bond-related approvals in October 2023. At this time, in addition to Housing Commission Board approval, the project will also be brought before the Housing Authority for approval in November. The developer expects to close construction financing and then begin construction in January 2024 and complete construction in August 2025. Here's the architect's rendering of the development. You are considering approvals to take the preliminary steps to issue up to $24 million in tax-exempt multifamily housing revenue bonds. Approval of the Bond Issuance and Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act, TEFRA, resolution does not commit the Housing Authority to issue bonds. The bonds would not constitute a debt of the city. If bonds are ultimately issued for the project, the bonds will not financially obligate the city, the Housing Authority, or the Housing Commission, because security for the repayment of the bonds will be limited to specific private revenue sources of the project. Staff recommends that the board take the actions detailed in the staff report and shown on this slide and the following, I think, 2 slides. This concludes the presentation. Colin and I, as well as representatives from the developer, are available to answer any questions we may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Comments, questions? Vice Chair Klempner?
I really like this project for a number of reasons, starting with the location. It's a pretty ideal location in terms of its connectivity to transit options, amenities, grocery stores, schools. Fantastic. I also really like the depth of affordability that we're seeing here. As we've just been talking about for the rest of the meeting, all of these issues with how we're transitioning people out of homelessness, or the even larger problem of at risk of homelessness, and the places that they can afford being our greatest limitation there. I don't want to go too far astray, but the other thing that jumped out to me about this is I'm familiar with the Friendship Hotel, and I know there's a lot of misunderstanding and also just a lot of strange technical definitions around SRO issues. It's a complicated subject, but it's also a subject that for years there's been a huge amount of discussion, rightfully, about how to move forward with those properties and some of the issues that come up with how they've historically been handled and how it intersects with our unhoused population or risk of homelessness. And this seems to be what I would consider about as ideal of an outcome for a very old structure that historically has functioned, I even hesitate to say as an SRO, but let's just say in the low-cost rental, somewhere between transient occupancy and housing. And if we're thinking about the role that those buildings currently play, have historically played, and the questions of preservation, there's a lot of big trade-offs that come up with an approach that simply prioritizes keeping the building there, functioning the way that it is functioning. The biggest one being that buildings have needs and expenses, and they need money to maintain, and so they deteriorate. I want to commend the team, both of the Housing Commission and the Development team, on working very diligently to provide the benefits and the rights to the most recent tenants. Specifically, the fact that they have first right of refusal on the new units. This seems to be, if I could wave a magic wand, this is kind of what I would like to see happen with every SRO, is that they continue to serve, and not even continue to serve the population that they were serving. More people are going to be living here, and we don't really, well, maybe we do, but the depth of AMI here would suggest that this is going to serve more people of a similar cohort. So, from the benefits to the public here, this is an enormous benefit, and this is an upgrade from what's there currently, and it's not coming at the expense of who historically has resided here. So, all of that said, thank you for bringing this forward. Thank you for working through the complexities. This is another also great point for the benefits of allowing this type of collaboration with a market rate development nearby. I imagine that there's a lot of efficiencies achieved both for the market rate developer and for this site when the objectives are pooled this way, and those resources from those market rate developments are going into supporting a project like this. This seems like all of these policies that we see and we talk about and we work on, this is kind of what they're designed to achieve. So, thank you.
Further comments, questions? I'll just say one thing. I love the project. I will echo what the Vice Chair said. Love the location, love the look, love the plan. Excellent job. Kudos. $520,000 a door. So down from some of the projects we've seen of recent. So also nice. Hopefully we keep seeing the trend that way. All right. Nothing else? I will entertain a motion if there is one.
So moved.
Motion by Vice Chair Klopner, second by Commissioner Hester. No further comments, questions. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any of those opposed? Oh, I'm sorry. We have public comment. Do we have any public comment? Nope. I didn't see Scott. None. Okay, we have a motion. We have a vote. No noes, no abstentions. The motion carries unanimously 4-0. Thank you very much. Next up is item 108, and this is the authorization to apply for State of California Home Key Program grant funds for 3747 to 3737 Midway Drive. We will take public comment after the staff presentation. Buddy Bohr will present this item. Buddy, the floor is yours.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I think, is it still morning?
It is, barely, but yes.
So the item before you today is a request to authorize Housing Commission to submit an application to the State of California Home Key Program. The Home Key is a statewide program designed to rapidly produce housing for people experiencing homelessness and at risk at homelessness. The California Department of Housing and Community Development, which administers this program, issued a notice of funding availability on March 29th, 2023 for the current round of Home Key. Through this NOFA, $736 million is available statewide. Of that amount, $34 million is set aside to San Diego. And the San Diego region also has the ability or the opportunity to apply for a competitive statewide pool of funds. Yeah, I've got to multitask here, so. So the state allows Home Key funds to be used for a variety of housing opportunities. They're listed here on the slide. The current item before you is for a proposed acquisition and rehabilitation of a hotel property. Home Key requires that all funds are spent within 8 months of the award. All construction and rehabilitation must be completed within 12 months of the award. And full occupancy must be achieved by 15 months of the award. This slide shows the projected Home Key dates. If the board approves the proposed actions today, the Housing Commission intends to submit an application this month for the Ramada Inn project, which will be renamed Pacific Village. The state expects to announce awards within 90 days of application, or August of this year. If the state awards funds for this project, the Housing Commission anticipates acquiring the property after the award notice no later than September of this year. 100% of the Home Key funds must be expended within 8 months after award notice, so that would be April of 2024. And rehabilitation will need to be completed within 12 months, which would be August of 2024. Full occupancy will need to be achieved in 90 days following construction completion, or November of 2024. This timeline obviously is contingent upon when the state awards and distributes the funds. So as you recall, you've seen this picture before. The property consists of 64 hotel rooms, a lobby area, and a small laundry area. It's a two-story building in the Midway area of Council District 2. So several due diligence activities have been completed to date, including review of preliminary title reports, appraisal review, peer appraisal review, physical needs assessments, Phase 1 environmental reports, market studies, ALTA land surveys, construction cost estimates, financial review, CEQA, NEPA, and environmental reviews, and other physical inspections. So if home key funds are awarded to the Housing Commission, the award is anticipated to occur in early in the fiscal year 2024. Potential award of home key funds is not included in the Housing Commission's proposed fiscal 2024 budget at this time. If the Housing Commission is authorized to apply for funds, and the funds are awarded to the Housing Commission, it will increase the fiscal 2024 budget by up to $18 million to support the project. If the Housing Commission purchases and rehabilitates this property, it will create 62 permanent affordable housing rental units with supportive services for people experiencing homelessness. Residents would receive access to supportive services shown on this slide. Residents would be identified through the coordinated entry system. And this property would serve people experiencing literal homelessness, people experiencing chronic homelessness, and transition-age youth experiencing homelessness. Of the residents experiencing literal and chronic homelessness, 15 people would be veterans. The Pacific Village project is centrally located and close to the following amenities. It's within 0.2 miles of Vaughn's grocery store, 0.4 miles of Kaiser Point Loma Hospital and Pharmacy, within feet of several bus stations or bus stops, and 0.4 miles of San Diego College of Continuing Education. So staff recommends that the board take the actions detailed in the staff report and as shown on the next two slides.
All right. We'll go ahead and open it up for questions, comments. Yes, Commissioner Vasquez.
Just for clarification, because we've seen a lot of projects recently, what is the method that mode that we receive the purchase contract for the transaction, like as far as broker, non-broker process?
So there's no broker included in this deal.
Okay. So that would mean, just to clarify, that the Housing Commission isn't paying a buyer's commission.
Correct. There's no broker in this deal. Yeah.
Okay. Vice Chair Klempner.
Let's get it. I'm ready.
buddy, why are you still sitting here?
But in all seriousness, I mean, I'm in the Midway area frequently. I've worked on several issues related to Midway area. I know that the community here has a lot of concerns about, the encampments that have popped up in recent years because of the layout, and I do think it's worth kind of putting in historical context here that we should always remember any time that we're talking about land use in Midway, that Midway was a thriving residential community that served lower income working people post-World War II, and at a time of peak racial segregation was a multiracial integrated community in San Diego, and through a series of local pushes and federal actions was raised in order to put asphalt parking lots and force people out of Midway. Any step in the direction of both providing resources and housing for the people currently living unhoused in the Midway area, and that moves us back towards correcting that historical wrong, is a step in the right direction. And this is one project, but it is a very important project. And I hope that everybody in the Midway community and the city as a whole would give full support for this, because it is a moral imperative. So I'll get off my soapbox. Thank you, buddy. Good luck.
Yeah, we have anything after that. I mean, again, buddy, why are you still sitting here? All right, further, we have a motion by Commissioner Hester. Is there a second somewhere? Commissioner Vasquez, we have a second. No further comments, questions? Home key, home key, home key. All those in favor, signal by saying aye. Aye. Nays, none. Abstentions, none. Motion carries 4-0 unanimously. Thank you, buddy. Again, why are you still sitting here? Next up is item 109, and it is the authorization to apply for State of California Home Key Program grant funds for the address of 2147 Abbott Street. We will take public comments after the staff presentation. I don't see any speaker slips thus far, so we should be good. And Vice President of Real Estate Development, Josh Hoffman, will present this item. Josh, you ready?
Ready.
Okay.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. The item is also a request to authorize the Housing Commission to submit an application to the State of California Home Key Program. This application would also be through the Notice of Funding Availability that the California Department of Housing and Community Development issues on March 29th, 2023. This slide shows the eligible uses of home key funds and performance requirements, which were also shown in the previous presentation. To identify potential projects to apply for these funds, the Housing Commission conducted a competitive request for qualification, or RFQ process. RFQ opportunities were made through both the city's and the Housing Commission's Planet Bids electronic bidding portal. Through this process, we created a short list of qualified developers with the potential to jointly submit applications for home key funds. Selection criteria were sent to shortlisted developers with a request to submit project proposals based on the home key criteria and timeline. Proposals were evaluated based on the established criteria. This slide shows the projected home key timeline for this proposed project. If the board approves the proposed actions today, the Housing Commission intends to submit a joint application with Wakeland Housing and Development Corporation this month for Abbott Street apartments. The state expects to announce awards within 90 days or by August of this year. 100% of the home key funds must be expended within 8 months of the award notice. The funds for this project are estimated to be spent by January 2024. Rehabilitation will need to be completed within 12 months of the award notice. The rehabilitation of this property is also anticipated to be completed by January of 2024. Full occupancy will need to be achieved within 90 days of construction completion or April 2024. The timeline is subject to change and is contingent on when the state awards and disperses the home key funds. The proposed home key application would support the acquisition and renovation of a multifamily affordable rental housing property in the Ocean Beach neighborhood of Council District 2 at 2147 Abbott Street. The development partner is Wakeland Housing and Development Corporation. Wakeland is an award-winning, experienced nonprofit developer that has collaborated with the Housing Commission on several developments. The property would provide 13 affordable rental housing units. In 1997, the Housing Commission restricted 14 units at this property to be affordable for individuals with income at or below 80% of San Diego's area median income, or AMI. The Housing Commission subsequently allowed the property to be reconfigured to provide 10 transitional housing units for victims of domestic violence, with 9 units restricted at or below 35% of AMI and 1 unit restricted at or below 50% of AMI. If the property is no longer used as transitional housing, the affordability restrictions revert to 14 units at 80% of AMI. If home key funds are awarded, we will return to the board to request approval to accept the funds for this project and will ask to revise the affordability restrictions on the property. The new affordability restrictions for the property would require the 13 units to be affordable for households experiencing chronic homelessness with income up to 30% of AMI. That is currently $27,350 per year for a one-person household. The developer completed due diligence and submitted it to the Housing Commission, which facilitated third-party peer reviews. Due diligence included preliminary title report review, appraisal, peer appraisal review, a physical needs assessment, a Phase 1 environmental report, market study, ALTA survey, construction cost assumptions review, financial review, CEQA and NEPA environmental reviews, and other physical inspections. If Home Key program funds are awarded to the Housing Commission, the award is anticipated to occur early in fiscal year 2024. The potential award of Home Key program funds is not included in the Housing Commission's proposed fiscal year 2024 budget. If the Housing Commission is authorized to apply for funds, and if the funds are awarded, it will increase the fiscal year 2024 funding sources and uses available by up to $5 million to support the Abbott Street Rehabilitation Project. Home Key funds would be issued to the Housing Commission and then dispersed to the developer. Residents would receive access to extensive supportive services as shown on this slide. Residents would be identified through referrals from the coordinated entry system. This property would serve individuals experiencing chronic homelessness. This project is close to several community amenities. For example, a bus stop is just a half mile from the project site. A grocery store, a pharmacy, park, and library are within a half mile, and it is a short walk from the beach. Housing Commission staff is recommending that the Board of Commissioners take the actions detailed in the staff report and is shown on the following slides. That concludes our presentation. I'm joined by representatives from the developer to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Josh. Pretty self-explanatory. Comments, questions? Sitting vacant, we can put it to good use. Commissioner Vasquez.
I wasn't able to see how much does it cost per unit this is going 14.
14 units, yeah. Yes, please step to the podium. Push, there's a button right there. There it is, you're good.
Good morning. My name is Lisa Huff. I'm with Wakeland Housing. The cost per unit total development cost is $525.
Okay. But again, based on what we've seen of recently, we'll trend down. Thanks. Thank you very much. All right. Any further comments, questions?
Happy to make the motion. Thank you, staff and Wakeland, for helping to tackle our enormous issue of how we rehouse our unhoused population.
We have a motion by Vice Chair Klumner. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Vasquez. All right. Seeing no further comment. Thank you, Josh. Again, I'm going to tell you the same thing we told Buddy. You know what that means. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Any noes? Any abstentions? The ayes carry. This passes unanimously 4-0. Thank you very much. We are now moving on to our final item on the agenda. The next item is item 110, an informational workshop about the Housing Commission's Customer Experience Unit. I'm going to turn it over to Jeff Davis to do an introduction before Mercy takes the mic. Jeff, the floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. Like other government agencies and businesses, the Housing Commission closed our offices at 1122 Broadway to the public throughout the COVID-19 pandemic for public health and safety reasons. During the pandemic, our staff demonstrated exceptional customer service, quality work, and high productivity, as the majority of them worked remotely. As this board knows and approved unanimously last year, our current MOU with Service Employee International Union Local 221 includes a 2-year pilot program for most of our employees to continue to work away from the office. As we implemented this 2-year pilot, we committed to continuing and enhancing our high level of customer service for those times when the public visits our offices. The creation of our Customer Experience Unit is the result of that commitment. During today's workshop, you'll hear about this unit, the types of services that they provide, and the efforts that we have undertaken thus far to create a positive experience for our customers. Mercy Maestra has done an exceptional job overseeing this new unit, and I will now ask her to give the presentation.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. On February 28, the State of California's state of emergency due to the pandemic ended. Less than a week later, the Housing Commission's headquarters reopened to the public. The Customer Experience Unit was staffed and ready to begin assisting visitors to our offices as soon as the doors opened. The Customer Experience Unit is the primary point of contact for visitors who come to the Housing Commission's offices here at 1122 Broadway. The unit consists of 5 Housing Commission staff. This team interacts frequently with customers and stakeholders, either in person or through our call center. We provide accurate information to Housing Commission program participants and staff throughout the day. To support these customer service efforts, Housing Commission administrative assistants serve as greeters in our first floor lobby. They welcome visitors to the building. Greeters engage in conversation with visitors, answer their general questions, and ask them questions to understand each customer's needs and connect them to the appropriate service. The first floor lobby also includes self-service options for Housing Commission customers. There are 3 drop boxes available for customers to drop off documents. This includes a drop box near the front of the main entrance that is available 24 hours per day. Customers may also stop by our office to obtain resources such as an affordable housing resource guide packet, available unit listing, homelessness response center flyer, Section 8 housing choice voucher waitlist Q&A, and a flyer about the Housing Commission's Achievement Academy. These flyers are available in a kiosk in the lobby. Customers can also fill out a client request form where they can provide contact information and include a note communicating their service request. Envelopes are available to clients who would like to utilize the drop box. Sorry about that. Here we go. We also updated the lobby's appearance. Monitors in the lobby display program information, including contact information for individual programs. We also purchased modern tapestry art to add a vibrant touch of color to our lobby. Additional lobby updates are anticipated. These include an area rug to help with the acoustics and possibly redesigning the layout of the first floor lobby to enhance the welcoming environment and service to customers. On the 3rd floor, the Customer Experience Unit is available to serve customers in person or to facilitate virtual connections, such as calls or meetings with caseworkers and Housing Commission staff. Virtual calls can be placed by using the 3rd floor lobby phones, which permit dial-by extensions, or calls can be conducted in one of 3 client conference rooms. Each conference room includes a computer monitor, camera for virtual Microsoft Teams meetings, scanner, copier, printer, and telephone. We also provide free parking validation for program participants visiting the Housing Commission's offices. At the 3rd floor reception area, customers also may apply for rental assistance waitlists, save their spot through the rental assistance waitlist update process, or update information on their existing waitlist application. The Housing Commission's core values include serving our clients with dignity and respect and a commitment to excellence and innovation in all we do. The Customer Experience Unit reflects the application of these values as we continue to provide exceptional customer service. That concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions you may have.
Nice job, Mercy. We have one public comment form, speaker request form, and Joy Samana, it is the floor is once again yours. Scott Marshall's going to help you. Hang on just a minute right there.
Mr.
You're set.
Marshall, he's great. He's helped me before. Okay. Oh, I could talk for so long about Mercy. We go way back. Joy Senyata, District 3. Mercy, thank you for the excellent presentation. Okay, first, what a great choice to pick Mercy. She's just so wonderful, and she's going to be such a great leader for this project. I'm really glad. I know you've been working on so much of it, but I'm so glad to be here for the first time when you're presenting here, I believe, and it's so wonderful. So this this work. It's valuable and so needed. We all know that, right? And of course, I wish you just such great success, and I know it'll happen. So as I listened to you, I thought about, I love grants, as I just said, but customer service, I really rail about customer service with the city also, because it's a touchy subject and we all can do better. And I think the Housing Commission really took a big leap when they decided to really put this work into this. And I think it's gonna, when it comes to fruition, you're gonna be really satisfied with the results. So thank you so much for putting your arms around this, and we look forward to seeing how it all unfolds. So that's that, and let's see I wanted to finish with this. So I consider myself a customer too, and I want to thank Mercy because she smoothed my path back to participating in these board meetings. Thank you so much. I love you, and I love everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Joy. Once again, we'll add a little extra appreciation on top of the appreciation that I gave you for this morning's appreciation. Okay. Again, Mercy, thank you very much for your presentation. No further comments or questions, or any comments or questions?
Joy stole all of our comments.
Yes.
Thank you.
I will just end with this, that I do think that, as I mentioned earlier, when people are navigating the system sometimes for the first time, environment makes a difference, welcoming, and these changes in the unit. Nothing stopped for the Housing Commission during COVID, right? The problem just got bigger. The need for support, upbeat spirit and attitude and kindness grew enormously. And so I give the entire team credit for the work that you did, because it was essential then, and it's continuing to be essential. So thank you very much, Mercy. All right. Thank you very much. That concludes this was an informational item, so that concludes the agenda, the regular agenda. And we will now prepare to go into closed session.
The commission will meet in closed session to discuss its closed session agenda, specifically Roman numeral 4A, which is conference with legal counsel concerning anticipated litigation based upon significant exposure to litigation pursuant to subdivisions C, section 54954.5. And there are two potential matters to be discussed. That is the sum and substance of what will be discussed in closed session.
Okay, there are no public comments on the closed session agenda as Chuck has laid out. So no speaker slips have been submitted, and so we'll wait for the room to clear, and then we will begin the closed session.
just gotta turn it off.
Chuck, as soon as you're ready. We good? All right, this is Mitch Mitchell, Chair of the San Diego Housing Commission Board of Commissioners. The board has concluded its closed session, is reconvening an open session at 12:15 p.m. Housing Commission General Counsel Chuck Christensen, please announce the action the board took in closed session.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Housing Commission met in closed session and discussed its closed session agenda items. The matter was informational only, no action was taken.
Thank you very much, Chuck. This concludes the board's regular and special meetings for today. We are adjourning at 12:15 p.m. Thank you very much to my fellow commissioners for your time, your patience, and your great work. And thank you to the team, the excellent work of the San Diego Housing Commission staff. Thanks.